Welcome back to From Corporate to Cashflow. We're Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have Jordan Reyes. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you, Jordan. So let's jump right in. Let's start by hearing a little bit about your journey, right? So, what settings did you work previously? How did you get into real estate? And what are you working on now?
Yeah, so my journey has kind of been all over the place. When I graduated college, I went to school in Montana. I went back to California, and I had a job at Frito Lay, and so I was an operations manager for a couple of years in my local town, and was immediate. I knew I didn't want to be there. Like I was trying to figure out like what my next step was, how I could get out, and I ended up taking a job about an hour and a half away. It was kind of a move up, right? But the reason I took it and I stayed where we lived was it was going to be hopefully a little bit more of a push to make me get out sooner. And so because then now I'm traveling every day, an hour and a half commuting back and forth, right? And so it was just like a little bit of an extra drive. And so I was worked at Frito Lay for about 3 years after school. And then I was always trying to figure out like what I was going to do next. And I knew I wanted to start something and I wanted to just do something for myself. And if I failed, it was on me. And so I actually started a well drilling company. So we started drilling water wells in the Central Valley in California. And that led me to, I farmed in California and did a couple other things. We did some irrigation work, and then I started an ag tech company. So on farms and ranches, we were doing some automation, kind of like a smart home, but out in the field. And when I was doing that, I then transitioned to looking at an office space because I didn't know anything about real estate. So I was looking at an office space because I was thinking, hey, we need office space to build some of these systems and to house some of our people. And maybe I get a commercial space and I rent it out. I don't really know. So I called the one guy that I did know that was in real estate. As far as I know, he was an agent and he had flipped. Like I didn't know that there was like all of these different categories. And so we met, we had lunch, and I told him what I was looking for. And he's like, I don't know anything about commercial. Like, all I do is flip. And so we had lunch and we kind of ended, that was the end of that conversation. And I thought, oh, well, I guess we're not getting a commercial building. I don't know what else to do. And he calls me back like a week later and he's like, hey, I've really been thinking about our conversation. I don't know anything about commercial. My main focus is flipping, but I've always struggled a little bit with new construction. I know you know business, I know you know operations. Would you want to partner? And I said, yeah, that sounds fun. Like, let's try it and see what happens. And so that's how I got started in real estate, was building new construction from the ground up. We were building spec homes, some single family and some smaller multifamily for a couple of years. And then that was going really well. And then COVID happened. And when we were in our largest projects at that time, I had spent probably the better half of the previous year getting through city planning and zoning on a 160 mixed use unit development. And I was really excited about that because that was like going to be the freedom, right? And so we were also building a 20 unit, but that's kind of when everything changed. All of the numbers, were just astronomical. Costs were skyrocketing. And we had to make a decision at that time. And so that decision was we had to kind of cut our losses. And obviously, looking back on it, hindsight's 2020. You wish you would have stayed in it, but you only were making decisions at that time with the information that you had. So that was about the same time that I moved back to Montana because I was like, man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in California anymore. So moved back to Montana, and then also realizing at that moment everything I had done was all build to sell. So cash flow was great, but there was no longevity to it. There was no wealth building or creation, and so it was kind of still. I was still working, right? Like I still had a job. And so then I was trying to figure out, okay, what does the legacy and the wealth look like from a long-term perspective, not only for me, but for my family. And so that's kind of when I got into trying to figure out rentals and single family and BRRRR. And then I had done a couple of those and I was like, man, this is going to take forever. Like $100 in cash flow is not great,
Mm.
you know? And
Yep.
so ton of work and you're getting $100. So then I was trying to learn multifamily, and learning multifamily, I got into some mentorships and some groups, and I kept making offers on properties, and that was tough as well because now you're competing with large hedge funds and private equity and big numbers and a lot of cash. And I couldn't get a deal that way either. And so that actually led me to finding an RV park. And initially, I just figured RV park, multiple spots, maybe it's similar. So we offered on an RV park and got turned down originally on that. And about 2 months later, they came back after they didn't sell it. 2 or 3 months later, came back and asked us if we would reconsider, and we said no. I said no at that time, and they said, well, we have another one that's not listed and maybe we could package it. And so we ended up putting those both under contract and structured a seller finance, creative finance deal. And that led me to getting into all the creative side, RV parks. We ended up closing a few months later on both of those deals. And so that's how I got into RV parks, which is our main focus today.
Yeah, super interesting story. And I want to dive into the RV parks a little bit more, but first, I have a question about you working at Frito-Lay. I always find it like so interesting to hear everyone's decisions and like their mentality, because like sometimes it's like a gradual thing where, you're like, this is kind of annoying, and then you keep working, you're like, yeah, okay, I'm pretty annoyed. And then, over a period of time, you just get tired and you're like, I think I'm gonna like go all in real estate. Or maybe like you just show up day one, you're like, nah, this is not for me. Like, get me out of here. So like, what kind of happened with you? Like, was that the case where you show up day one, you're like, nah, this is
Yeah.
not, yeah.
Day one was like I had to do it because I was getting I was getting married, so I got married like right after school, right out of school, and so obviously you have to take care of your family and do all that stuff. And so, but I mean, it was just basically a babysitting job, to be honest with you. And
Hmm.
man, these people are like twice my age, 3 times my age, and I'm having to like manage these people all because I went to school and got some degree, and now I'm just sitting here like mediating between two people who ran into each other with a cart when they were picking, you know, the bags of chips to pack them. And I'm like, man, this cannot be it. Right.
Yeah, that's what you went to school for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I feel that. And I also wanted to dive into the RV parks because when you hear about real estate, I will say, I know, like when I met you, I hadn't heard of investing in RV parks before. I was like, well, that's weird. But the more you think about it and learn more about it, you're like, hey, that really makes sense. And so I guess at a high level, could you maybe explain some of the benefits that you've seen and or how it like contrasts from some of the other strategies?
I'm sorry, how it contrasts from some of what was the last part?
Yeah, sorry about that. Like other real estate investing strategies. Like if someone just wants to be a PML or they want to have long-term rentals and they're not like, oh, what about like, why would someone be like, oh, maybe RV parks make sense for me?
Yeah. So RV parks, in my opinion, are kind of the last frontier. They are, why we got the deal was there wasn't a lot of private equity. They're bigger deals, they're commercial deals still, but there's not a lot of private equity. It's a lot of mom and pop still. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity. I think a lot of people see high numbers in cash flow from RV parks, which there certainly are. And so that's an opportunity. For me, it was more of a business background, and I will say that the difference in real estate in the different sectors, if you will, RV parks are more similar to business. They're like business first, real estate second. And so there's a lot of levers to pull. There's a lot of different things that you can do to add value. And so I think that RV parks are a little bit different, but there is still the most opportunity in that space.
Yeah. And when you say business, can you help me understand a little bit more about like what types of business you're talking about? Like
Yeah.
what type of person with what type of background and skill set would be able to excel in this area?
So I think that, I mean, if you put your mind to it, anybody can excel in it, right? It's just
Right.
about putting enough hard work and dedication into it. I would say the difference is where I've seen people struggle are they coming from something a little bit more passive, a
Mhm.
self storage, a multifamily asset where they can hire a property manager and not be completely passive, but be pretty hands off, right? And that's not RV parks. There's not a lot of like property management groups or folks that are doing it because there's so many different things and so many different expense, sectors that you can control in an operation, and so when I talk about business, I am talking more about just the different areas that you can extract value from. So you could have a convenience store, you could run rentals, boat rentals, ATV rentals, paddle boards, you know, ice machines, laundry. There's so many different things that you can do on an RV park. Very similar to like a short-term rental, except that there's just more of them. If you're talking about a property, you're talking like the equivalent of, let's say, 50 short-term rentals, and
Mhm.
it's really more of a hospitality for the most part, more of a hospitality brand, um, and branding, outdoor hospitality, and so that's what I'm alluding to when I'm talking about more of a business side of things.
Okay, thanks. That definitely makes sense. So it's almost the same hat, but also a different hat that
Yeah,
other investors may be wearing. Yeah.
yeah.
And then just to be clear, so you are purchasing these RV parks with the intention to then rent out spots. Is that right?
Yes. So most of the parks that we are, and there's different categories, right? There's even within RV parks, there's differences. There's your ultra luxury, heavy amenities, destination water park. There's stuff that's a little bit less amenity heavy and more of a transient, and then there's also stuff that more resemble like a mobile home park, longer term kind of work camp setups. So but the goal is, yeah, we are most of the time buying a property, 50, 75, 100 pads, and renting out those individual spots.
That's helpful to understand. And you mentioned mobile home parks, and this is probably going to sound really dumb, but when I first heard about RV parks, I just assumed it was the same as mobile
Yeah.
home parks, and you're just barely contrasting them at the very end. So, can you tell us high level differences between RV parks and mobile home parks, and then maybe why you've leaned towards RV parks yourself, and who would maybe be a good fit for mobile home parks if you know?
Yeah. So the major difference between a mobile home park and an RV park is just the length of stay and very high level. So with a mobile home park, it is a modular home that is being brought to the property and it's not moving, right? It's going to be there. And so your tenant base is somebody who's really looking for an affordability option. And most of the time they're kind of locked in because it's going to cost them 5, 10 grand to just move the house if they wanted to. Now they could totally move and sell the house, but really it's a lot more hands off because all you're doing is rent most of the time is you're renting the dirt. Now there are situations where they're park owned homes and things like that, but for the sake of the conversation, it's really about in that scenario you're just renting the dirt. You're not really providing a whole lot more because basically they are. I mean, there are certainly pools and amenities that you can have to separate yourself, but they're kind of locked in for a year long-term lease, whereas on an RV park it's much more like a hospitality brand. Though I mean you can turn every night, every couple of nights, spaces are open, people are coming in and out because RVs are going down the road most of the time.
Yeah, so there's different types of RV parks out there, and which types specifically are you more the high end parks? Are you targeting parks near national parks? I know that you're in Montana. Maybe is it near Glacier? Like, give me some insight as to the parks that you're mostly focused on.
So I will say that we're more focused on more the transient
Mm.
amenity type parks outside of a national park or something like that. But with that being said, we are also buying one in Texas right now that's under contract that is more kind of the complete opposite. It is more of a work camp, longer term. more of a hybrid model. So let's say 80%, 70 to 80% will be long-term tenants, and then 20 to 30 will be transient. So that wasn't one that we necessarily went out and were seeking. That was somebody that brought me the deal. They came to me and said, "Hey, we're having trouble with this. We don't want to own. We don't want to operate anymore. I know you do RV parks. Like, will you take a look at this?" So it wasn't something that we were targeting. Most of our target has been more the transient, more leaning towards the hospitality. But that's with that being said, we will also look at some of these other parks.
Gotcha. And I know you said, with multifamily, things can be more passive than what you're experiencing with the RV parks and what you're doing so far. So talk to me, is if someone wants to do RV parks, like, should they expect that they need to be able to run the RV park themselves, or are there people, asset managers out there that run RV parks? And how would you even know how to pick somebody like that if it exists?
So what I haven't found too many, groups. I might know of one or two guys that are kind of doing that and trying to turn that into more of a model. I think that the challenge has been people have come in that have come from a multifamily or a self storage, background and thought, I will just put in a property manager, and that property manager may even have a background in more of a multifamily or mobile home park, and it just I hear more horror stories than anything good, to be honest with you. And so, like, even a lot of the ones that we are looking at, they have had somebody that they've placed in management because they're used to doing that, right? Whoever's buying it is used to, these big firms are used to putting a manager or a management company in place. And for one reason or another, expense ratios are just completely out of whack, and they're overspent and they're losing money on the deal. And then they're like, man, this is way more work, and we're not even making the money that we thought we were going to make. So now they're looking to transition out and get back to their core competencies. So I would say that you know try and, if you're looking at being an operator or want to own an RV park, you just have to decide what you want to do. There's basically two paths that you could go down, and there's one that's more of a lifestyle, and there's one that's more of a kind of a corporate structure, if you will. And so the way that I delineate those is, if you're more of a lifestyle person, like you grew up RVing, you love the life that it affords you, and you love to travel and you love to be in those spaces, and you could see yourself being there, kind of day in and day out. That's one aspect of it, because maybe you're going to buy this park, you're going to live on site, which of the 16,000 parks that are around, 80 to 90% are mom and pop, live on site, owned, operated, and ran. So that's totally doable. But if you're thinking you're going to buy this and just be completely hands off, you need to probably look at partnering with somebody who is already operating and has a team. And for us, what we are looking at is, we're looking to acquire 4 more this year and 25 by in the next 3 years. And so when we're doing that, we have to have a little bit more of a corporate structure. We have to have somebody who's running operations, somebody who's running the asset, and then that person is overseeing the person that's on site. And so for us, it's a little bit different. So that's what I would say about looking for a property manager or trying to be a little bit more hands off, is just finding somebody that you know and you like and that you can get along with. And maybe that is more of something where you guys just partner on one or two, and then you can really figure out, yeah, I do like this model and I think I can go and do it on my own. Or maybe it's not for me. I'd rather just keep partnering with this person. Or hey, I'm good with the two that we did, or the one that we did. I'm going to go do something completely different. So,
Yeah, I feel like if anyone were to listen to any part of this podcast, that would be like the summary, right? That was more information than I could just like Google. So thank you for giving like that nice overview,
yep.
because Andrew and I both must be dumb, because I thought RV and mobile parks originally were the same thing, or like what's the difference, right? So thank you for clarifying a lot of those points. That's super helpful. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So the other thing that I want to dive into, obviously, I have a ton of experience. I've worked in different capacities here within real estate. Let's talk about real estate, or not real estate. Let's talk about RV parks specifically. What's something that you know now that you wish you would have known at the very beginning for RV park investments?
What's something that I know now that I wish I would have done?
Yep.
Probably how much work they are.
Can you expand?
Well, there's like I said, previously, is there's just so many different things that you can do, and when you get shiny object syndrome, it gets tough to decide exactly what you're going to do and exactly all of the things that you want to put your money towards, and um, just how much the people side of it is, and dealing with customers and things like that, good, bad, or indifferent. I would, when I go to the parks here now, if I go on site and like our park manager is not there and people see me, I just know that I'm going to be there for like 4 hours and getting done, you know, because it's just like that lifestyle. Those people are, they're vacationing and they're traveling and they want to talk to somebody and they want to hang out. And so that is one thing that I didn't really foresee getting into RV parks.
That's really interesting. And they probably are like, oh, I've got all the time in the world because I'm on vacation. You're like, cool, I don't.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm just trying to get the trash and move and get out of here.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so interesting. So I know that just thinking about I know you just did an event recently and you're gonna probably have another event at some point. Talk to us about your 2-day event that you just had. What was it like? Was it for people who are interested in RV parks, and kind of what was the output from that? Are they maybe going to partner with you going forward, just so that people can have an idea of what to expect if they see you having another event up in the future?
Yeah. So, I mean, the event was great. We had people from all over. Somebody, I think the farthest was England. We had somebody from England. And it was just really, really good. We went really in depth on all of the things that I just talked about: operations, underwriting, what to look for in a park, how to structure a deal. And it was a lot of fun. We got to walk some of the parks and kind of see firsthand operations and all that type of stuff. We talked about capital and partners and capital raising and different things. And so, yeah, that person is somebody who wants to be involved in the RV park space, but maybe they just don't know exactly how to get started. And so, the feedback was really good. They really enjoyed being in the room, understanding. I think the biggest takeaway, the biggest feedback was like how much goes into due diligence. So that was a lot of the feedback, and because we gave out our templates and what we look for in a due diligence, and I think the my biggest takeaway was just being in the room with other people that are trying to level up and that are willing to work together and partner and collaborate. And it was really good to see. I mean, everybody kind of had their different, areas of focus, whether that be West Coast or East Coast or down in Texas or whatever. But everybody was there learning and wanting to do deals together. And we analyzed, I think, 2 or 3 deals. And so even out of that, like we're working on a couple of deals that might come to fruition too. So it's really about being in the room with other people and just feeding off each other's energy. And so it was super good. And yeah, definitely looking forward to do another one with even more people and just establish more relationships.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think RV parks just sound so intimidating to me, at least. Man, like people have asked me, "Oh, are you guys going to do RV parks?" I wouldn't even know where to begin. So the fact that you're offering this for people who are interested in getting into RV parks, that is just pure gold. I hope you do more of them because it sounds like it was a really successful event for people who were there.
Yeah, like I said, we're kind of scouting some different spots and looking to see where we're going to go next. But it's just really powerful to be in the room, right,
Yeah.
with other people who are going the same direction and that are looking to work together. And I've gotten so many messages like, "Hey, when are you doing the next one? Like, I'm in. I want to be there in the next one, and like let's do this now." And I just have to say, like, we got to recharge a little bit. We got to kind of give us a little bit of time. So,
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like that was really great. So I want to ask a little bit more, since you've been doing this and you're operationalizing these parks and kind of thinking about, all that goes into the RV parks that you have. Are there any habits or routines that you've developed to keep these parks operationally like top notch?
Well, I think just going through your checklist and having a idea of really what you want, you know, before you just look at everything, right? I mean, we talked about shiny object syndrome, but really honing in on your buy box, but then also honing in on like what your actual exit strategy is, and just always keeping that in mind, right? So, like, we have a couple of core principles, and all of our decisions are made on those core principles. And so it's basically done, again, this is more corporate, if you will, when you're building a team. And so all of our decisions are based off of almost like a scorecard. And so, does that take out some human element? A little bit, but it helps us check all of the boxes and make sure that all of the things that we want in a park and that the experience that we want to deliver to people is, kind of uniform. So, just our kind of obviously part that starts with due diligence, but even our operational checklist and like what we're doing, how we greet people, what we send to them when they book. We just want to have we want to really focus on our reviews, and then take that, even the bad ones, take that in and try and improve.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a super like methodical process, right? Through your due diligence and then seeing the project through, and then you mentioned the reviews. So obviously, if I were listening and I had any interest in RV parks, I'd be like, hey, can I collaborate with Jordan? So are you looking for collaborations or partners for acquiring RV parks, or what are you looking for right now?
Yeah, we're always open to collaborating with people and working together. Even if that's just, hey, we just want somebody to consult for us and like just tell us about your systems. Where I'm happy to do that. If this is like a simple question, you can always send me a message on like Instagram or whatever. But if we are looking at more of an operational partner or looking at a deal, we can always partner on a deal. If you're like, hey, I just kind of want to learn and I'd rather get a fee from sending you the deal, we do that as well. If it's just us operating it, then we have a little bit more limit on our what we're looking for in our buy box. But if we have somebody that's in that area and that wants to learn and that is willing to partner and put in some of the work, then we'll go to other places that aren't necessarily a a clear fit for our buy box.
Yeah. And what would the partnership look like if someone wanted to help provide, money or, and like, is there a range or what type of like amount you're typically looking for? I'm just trying to get like the viewers or listeners an idea of like what this actually looks like if they are interested.
Yeah, so there's just such a big range, right? And there's such a range of like what you can do or what you're willing to do, and that even goes with capital as well. We our target is usually, or our average is like 5 to 8% down on a project. Not to say that we always hit that number, but so that kind of gives you an idea of where the capital outlay would be, and then some people don't want to be on site or aren't capable of being on site or kind of doing some of the oversight stuff. So that would look different than somebody who just brings us a deal, or in somebody who's going to be on site or maybe live there or move there or whatever. So it's hard to say exactly what that would look like, but most of the time, we have a traveling asset manager, so we can be there and set all that stuff up. So I would say most of the time it's probably a partnership with just either a little bit of oversight or maybe a capital partner or something like that.
Okay, so it sounds like if you're just like a baseline interest in getting involved in RV parks, there might be an opportunity to collaborate with you.
Yeah, and I would say that that is going to be huge for credibility, right? So if you've never done an RV park, it is super hard to be like, hey, I want to buy this $5 million RV park, and then they ask you like, well, what's your background? How many parks do you own? And you're like, well, I've never done it before, right?
Yeah.
But if you could say, hey, I own one in Texas, or I own one in Oklahoma, whether you own 1% or 100%, you're still an owner, you're a partner, and I think that credibility goes a long way for other brokers or sellers, but also even just for you and yourself and your mindset is what I have found. People are really take a lot of ownership, and that's, if we're going to do a partnership, that's what I would like to see from people. It's not just like we're always going to be partners. Go off and do your own thing. Totally, I'm totally for it.
Hmm. And then I have a one-off question. I know you just mentioned a few different states. So when I think RV parks, I know Andrew had mentioned this previously. I'm thinking, the national parks, or like I want to go hiking and then I can explore the lake, et cetera, et cetera. Then you mentioned Oklahoma. I'm like, why would any like where who's going to Oklahoma and staying in an RV park, right? So are there states that make more sense? I mean, this may be a dumb question, but is there any location where you're like, yes, we gravitate towards this, makes more sense, or avoid this?
So we gravitate more towards like Montana, Utah, Idaho, Colorado, Wyoming. Um, Really, because I know those areas, right? You can give me a small town in Montana and I can say like, oh yeah, I know what's going to happen, or I know the growth pattern, or I know whatever, right? And so I think that's the biggest difference. And and when we're looking at parks, and I want to be confident in what we're doing. So, people still go to Oklahoma for various reasons. And so is that something that we would look at? Not as much, because I would have to be super confident in the numbers, and it wouldn't necessarily be more of a long term play, because I just don't know the area as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. And then switching gears yet again. So let's say we're talking to someone that's new in their real estate investing journey. So not just like RV park specific, but completely new. Let's say they just started a job at a chip company and they're like, man, this sucks. But I want to get involved in real estate, but don't know what to start, don't know anything about anything. What would be your one piece of advice to them in their pursuit of like financial freedom?
So I would say you have to just start and take imperfect action, whether that's RV parks or single family, or I've never done real estate. Get out there, talk to somebody, go on Zillow, go to open houses on the weekend. Just practice doing the thing, and that's going to be the first step. You have to start somewhere, right? And the first part is going to suck. I can promise you that, but everybody started somewhere, and so just taking imperfect action. That's probably the easiest way, is just like getting on calls or networking with the local folks that are doing the thing, getting in the rooms of the places and people who are doing the thing that you want to do in the future. Go and network with those people.
That's awesome advice. And I will take it a step further and tell people if they want to do RV parks, they should definitely at least learn a little bit more about your next event and maybe consider attending it, because there's just so much out there about different avenues of investing in real estate, but it doesn't get specific enough on the how to aspect. And like you said, it's so much credibility involved in having one RV park or partial ownership, so that, if you can leverage you and your abilities, right, that'll make their journey so much more successful. So getting in the room with people that are doing RV parks just like you is definitely the way. So thinking a little bit, I know RV parks lend themselves to travel, right? And I would love to hear if you have any personal bucket list destinations you're hoping to hit in the next year or two.
Ooh, in the next year or two. Um, Portugal's one. We are actually completely separate from our RV parks. I mean, we do a lot of different things, but we are working on a health and wellness center in Portugal. And so um, we've looked at a few properties. And so that's probably within the next 6 to 12 months, is we'll have something there. Um, really focus on health and wellness, and it's still a hospitality, so there'll be some outdoor hospitality. It's not an RV park, right? But that is one of the things that I'm looking forward to probably the most.
I love that too. And, talk about dumb questions. Do they have RV parks in like Portugal and stuff?
So they do, but they're not the same, right? Because like in Europe, the roads are really narrow, and so it's not like you're going down the road with these Class A motorhomes all the time
I
and gravel
see. Okay.
stuff. So
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. You're educating us a lot today. Um, so if someone wants to get in contact with you or collaborate with you, as we mentioned, there are a plethora of opportunities, or to learn more about any of your upcoming workshops, what is the best way that they do that?
either on our website, it's just jordanreyes.me, or the easiest place to get in touch with me directly is on Instagram at the underscore Jordan underscore Reyes, and send me a message, DM me. If you have a question on a deal, or just popping in to say hello, I'm pretty active on there and responsive to questions.
Awesome. Well, we super appreciate it. I have learned so much from you, and I know that if I'm ever going to get into RV parks, it is going to be through you for sure. They definitely still intimidate me a lot. So thanks so much for making it seem more approachable than it did just 30 minutes ago. So super appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah. And so thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode of From Corporate to Cashflow. We will catch you next week. Hey, it's Andrea. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. Thanks so much.